Maya Collins stood at the edge of the softly lit hall, her fingers nervously twisting the strap of her purse. The music played softly in the background, and laughter floated through the room, but it all felt distant to her. This wasn't just any gathering, it was her brother Ethan's engagement party, a day that should have been filled with joy and celebration. But for Maya, a quiet feeling of unease had settled deep in her chest. As she scanned the room, she saw familiar faces, friends, family, and colleagues of Ethan's fiancée, Olivia. Everyone was smiling, exchanging congratulations, and snapping pictures. Yet, as the camera flashes lit up the room, Maya felt exposed, almost invisible under the weight of people's judgmental eyes. She had always been the quiet, unassuming sister, and somehow, tonight seemed to amplify that feeling. A group of women by the buffet table glanced her way. Maya caught fragments of their conversation, and the words stabbed at her confidence. "Isn't she Ethan's little sister?" one whispered, laughing softly. "She looks so plain compared to everyone else," another added. Maya forced a polite smile and turned away, pretending she hadn't heard. But each snicker and murmured remark echoed in her mind, growing louder than the music. She found a small corner near the window, away from the main crowd. Outside, the winter evening had draped the city in shadows, the cold contrasting sharply with the warmth of the party inside. Maya could see her reflection in the glass, and for a moment, she wondered if she really belonged here. "Why does it always feel like people are judging me before they even know me?" she thought. Maya's gaze drifted toward Ethan, who was surrounded by friends, laughing and holding Olivia's hand. Her brother had always been protective of her, always the one to stand up when someone tried to make her feel small. But tonight, as she watched him celebrate with everyone else, she felt a pang of loneliness. She wanted to join the laughter, to feel included, but a weight of self-doubt kept her rooted to the spot. She thought about her career, the long nights she had spent building her small startup, the endless emails, the calls, the late-night work when everyone else seemed to have fun. She had come a long way, yet none of that mattered to these people. To them, she was just Ethan's sister, a girl who had never done anything remarkable. Maya felt a flicker of anger, mixed with sadness. How could they know nothing about her struggles, her achievements, her story? The mocking didn't stop. Across the room, she overheard someone mention her simple office job with a laugh that dripped with superiority. Her heart sank. She wanted to speak up, to defend herself, but something inside her held her back. Maya wasn't used to confrontation, and the thought of embarrassing herself made her stomach twist into knots. Instead, she quietly observed, noting every sneer, every whispered insult, every sideways glance that made her feel smaller than she already felt. Then, a young man from Olivia's office approached her, a smirk on his face that immediately set Maya on edge. "So, Maya, what do you do all day? Sit at home and twiddle your thumbs?" he asked, clearly expecting a laugh from others. Maya's cheeks burned, and for a moment, she felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She forced a smile, something polite and neutral, but her mind raced. "They don't know me. They have no idea what I'm capable of." Maya's fingers tightened around her purse strap, and she took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She told herself she didn't need their approval, that her worth wasn't defined by their laughter. And yet, the sting of humiliation lingered, making her chest feel heavy. The night continued, and every toast, every smile, and every clinking glass reminded her that she was an outsider in her own brother's celebration. As she watched the room, a plan began to form in her mind, quiet and careful. If they thought she was weak, if they thought she could be dismissed so easily, they were in for a surprise. Maya didn't want revenge, not really. She wanted to be seen for who she was, for all the hard work she had put into her life. And maybe, just maybe, tonight would be the night she could finally do that. But for now, she stayed silent, watching, feeling the tension coil tighter in her chest. The laughter, the whispers, the casual cruelty, they all pushed her to the edge, but they hadn't broken her. Not yet. And as the first part of the evening drew to a close, Maya Collins made a quiet promise to herself. They would see her, one way or another. Maya moved slowly through the crowd, holding her drink like a shield. She tried to smile at a few people who approached her, but the warmth in their eyes never reached her. Across the room, laughter bubbled from a group of Olivia's colleagues, The same ones who had whispered about her earlier. They didn't notice her staring, or maybe they did, and it only seemed to amuse them more. One of the women, a tall blonde named Claire, leaned in to whisper something to a friend. Maya caught enough to make her stomach twist. "She's so ordinary. I can't believe Ethan even introduced her to us," Claire said, smirking. The friend laughed, tilting her head in agreement. Maya's fingers curled around her glass, the cool surface grounding her as she tried to steady her racing heart. A man named Ryan, wearing a crisp suit, stepped forward with a condescending smile. "So, Maya," he said, loud enough for others to hear, "what exactly do you do? Just sit in an office somewhere, right? Not like running a big company or anything." Laughter erupted around him. Some of the guests nudged each other, pointing subtly at her, as if she were a joke meant to entertain them. Maya felt a hot flush creep up her neck. Her chest tightened, and she swallowed hard. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor and escape the humiliation. But she didn't move. Something inside her, a quiet spark of anger and pride, told her to stay. She had faced harder battles before, hadn't she? Nights when she worked alone, building her dreams while everyone doubted her. Nights when she had nothing but determination to keep going. And here, now, she wasn't going to let these small-minded people define her. Yet the words stung. Every sneer, every whispered insult, carved itself into her mind. She felt a wave of frustration and sadness wash over her. "Why is it so hard for people to see what I've accomplished?" she thought, her eyes scanning the room for someone familiar, someone who would understand her pain. Her brother Ethan was busy chatting with Olivia's family, and she knew better than to interrupt him. Then Claire leaned closer, her tone dripping with fake concern. "Oh, Maya, don't take it personally. Everyone has their own charm, right?" The words were so patronizing that Maya felt her jaw clench involuntarily. She forced a polite nod, but inside, a storm was brewing. She wanted to say something sharp, something that would make them think twice. But she knew that her real power wasn't in words alone, it was in the truth they didn't know yet. Maya's mind drifted to all the moments in her life when she had been underestimated. Teachers who said she wouldn't amount to much. Colleagues who laughed at her ideas. Even friends who assumed she was too quiet to succeed. All of them had been wrong. And now, these people, laughing at her in what was supposed to be a joyful celebration, were about to learn the same lesson. Still, she had to play it carefully. She couldn't let anger take over, not yet. She quietly observed the interactions around her, memorizing names, faces, and the smug expressions that she knew would change soon. She noticed subtle cues, Ryan's slightly nervous glance when someone else complimented him, Claire's tight grip on her wine glass, the little self-satisfied smirks that betrayed insecurity disguised as confidence. Every detail would be useful. Every tiny act of mockery would soon be part of a bigger reveal. The teasing escalated when someone else joined in. A young man named Liam, Olivia's co-worker, made a comment loud enough for the room to hear. "I guess Maya's the perfect example of, well, someone who's not really on our level." A few people laughed, clinking glasses in agreement. Maya's fingers tightened so much around her drink that her knuckles turned white. Her heart pounded, but she kept her voice calm as she murmured to herself, "Just wait. Just wait until they know the truth." Despite the embarrassment, there was a strange clarity that came over her. Each insult, each whispered judgment, fueled her resolve. She could feel the power building inside her, not from revenge, but from the knowledge that she had worked hard, that she had earned her place in the world. These people were living in their small bubble, unaware that the quiet, ordinary woman they mocked had built something they could only dream of. Maya took a slow sip of her drink, pretending to be unfazed, though every nerve in her body was alive with tension. She felt like a coiled spring, waiting for the exact moment to release all the frustration and reveal the truth. And she knew it would be spectacular. She didn't need to shout, or argue, or prove herself in a petty way. She only needed to let them see what she had built, what they had overlooked, and what they had foolishly underestimated. As the laughter continued, Maya smiled faintly to herself, a quiet, confident smile that no one noticed. She moved closer to the center of the room, her mind already rehearsing what she would say when the time came. "They think they can laugh at me, But they have no idea who they're really dealing with, she thought. The room hummed with music, chatter, and clinking glasses, but Maya felt a calm focus inside her. This night was about to change forever, and she was ready for it. Maya stood near the corner of the room, her drink untouched, as the laughter and chatter of the party swirled around her. For a moment, she closed her eyes and let herself drift back in time. Memories of her past came rushing in, vivid and unrelenting. She remembered her first day at college, bright-eyed and full of ambition. She had dreamed of building something meaningful, something of her own, but most people had dismissed her ideas. "You're too quiet to lead anything," some professors had said. "Stick to something simple," others advised. Each word had cut deep, but instead of breaking her, it had ignited a fire. Maya had learned early that no one would hand her success, she had to claim it herself. After college, life had not become easier. The first job she took felt more like survival than progress. Long hours, men and women who underestimated her, bosses who questioned her every idea, it was exhausting. Maya had spent nights alone in her small apartment, staring at spreadsheets and business plans, trying to piece together a vision that no one else could see. Some nights she had cried, feeling the weight of her dreams pressing down, thinking maybe she wasn't strong enough to carry them. But every time she doubted herself, she remembered the look of pride in her mother's eyes and the quiet encouragement of her brother Ethan, who had always believed she was capable of more than she realized. It wasn't easy. Rejection letters piled up like a tower, and investors often laughed at her proposals. She remembered one particular meeting, a room full of suited men, all smiling politely while shaking their heads. "Your ideas are cute," one had said, smirking. "But the market doesn't need this." Maya had nodded, swallowed the lump in her throat, and walked out, her hands shaking, but she hadn't given up. That was the night she decided she would never let someone else define her worth. Slowly, piece by piece, she built her dream. She started a small company, Collins Enterprises, with barely enough money to cover rent and utilities. Every day was a battle, negotiating contracts, convincing clients, hiring employees, and learning the ropes of leadership from scratch. There were mistakes, costly ones, but each failure became a lesson. And little by little, her company grew. What once had been a one-room office with a single desk became a thriving business with dozens of employees, projects, and clients who respected her judgment. Maya remembered the first time she truly felt recognized for her work. It was a small moment. A client had called to thank her personally for saving a project that had seemed impossible. "You've really built something incredible," he had said. She had hung up the phone and sat in silence, tears running down her face. That moment, small as it seemed, had meant more than any applause, any congratulatory party. She had earned it all herself. And yet, here she was, standing at her brother's engagement, surrounded by people who had no idea of any of it. People who thought she was ordinary, insignificant, someone to laugh at. Maya felt a mix of frustration and determination. They didn't know the late nights, the sacrifices, the sleepless weekends. They didn't know the sharp business decisions she had made, the employees she had mentored, or the risks she had taken. All they saw was the quiet, polite woman standing in the corner. As she replayed the memories in her mind, a small, confident smile began to form. Maya realized something important: she didn't need to prove herself to anyone yet. The satisfaction would come from letting the truth speak for itself. She had worked too hard to waste her energy on petty arguments or explanations. One day, these people would see her clearly, and the laughter would die on their lips. The memory of her first major deal flashed in her mind, the moment she had signed a contract that doubled her company's size overnight. She could still feel the exhilaration, the adrenaline, the fear of failure that had clung to her chest. That fear had never left her, but it had become a motivator, a reminder of what she was capable of when she refused to give up. Maya straightened her back and inhaled deeply. The fire inside her was growing, ready to emerge at the right moment. She thought about Ethan again, her brother, who had always treated her like an equal despite her quiet nature. She loved him fiercely and didn't want to ruin his engagement night. But at the same time, she wanted the people mocking her to understand one undeniable truth: Maya Collins was not someone to be underestimated. She had built an empire from scratch, faced countless challenges, and emerged stronger every single time. Maya's hands trembled slightly, but this time it wasn't from fear, it was from anticipation. She could almost imagine the faces of the guests when they realized the truth. The women laughing behind her, the men sneering at her achievements, all of them would be stunned. And she would remain calm, composed, and confident, letting her accomplishments speak louder than their mockery ever could. As the party continued, Maya's thoughts returned to the present. The music, the laughter, and the clinking glasses no longer felt like threats, they were the backdrop to her moment. The time for revelation would come, and when it did, everyone would see what she had spent years building. Not to shame them, not to seek revenge, but simply to be seen. For the first time that night, Maya felt a sense of peace. She was ready. And deep inside, she knew that nothing and no one could make her doubt herself again. Maya lingered near the edge of the room, her pulse quickening as she watched the same group of people who had been mocking her. The laughter, once background noise, now felt like sharp needles pricking her every nerve. She could see Claire smirking across the room, Ryan whispering something to a colleague while glancing at her, and Liam leaning back with a self-satisfied grin. For a moment, Maya considered leaving. She could walk out quietly, slip away from the humiliation, and let the night go on without her. But then, a thought settled in her mind, calm, steady, and powerful. No. Not tonight. They need to see. They need to understand. She straightened her back, feeling a surge of determination rise inside her. This wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. About finally being seen for who she really was. She took a slow breath, letting her nerves settle just enough to think clearly. The party buzzed around her, oblivious to the storm gathering in Maya's mind. She glanced toward Ethan and Olivia, who were surrounded by friends and family, laughing and celebrating, completely unaware of the tension building on the sidelines. Maya knew she had to choose the right moment. A hasty confrontation would ruin everything. She needed their attention, their focus, and she would get it. Maya scanned the room for a good spot, somewhere central but commanding. The small stage near the cake table caught her eye. It wasn't a grand podium, but it would draw people's eyes. She moved carefully, her footsteps quiet, every movement deliberate. As she approached, the chatter in the room seemed to dull, as if the world itself had paused for her to make her choice. She took another deep breath, letting her mind replay all the moments that had brought her here, the late nights working on her startup, the countless rejections, the sleepless weekends, and the people who had doubted her at every turn. She felt their weight and used it, letting it fuel her courage. Her hands no longer trembled, instead, they clenched in quiet readiness. Tonight, she would no longer hide. Tonight, they would see the real Maya Collins. As she reached the small stage, a few heads turned, curiosity flickering in their eyes. Maya felt a flicker of anxiety. What if they laughed? What if they didn't believe her? But she pushed the doubt away, focusing on the fire that had been growing inside her for years. I've worked too hard to let anyone diminish me. This is my moment. She cleared her throat softly, catching Ethan's eye first. His look of surprise and concern gave her the reassurance she needed. Then she raised her voice just enough to carry over the murmur of the room. "Excuse me," she said politely, drawing more attention. The laughter quieted, and all eyes slowly turned toward her. Maya's heart pounded in her chest, not with fear, but anticipation. Her gaze swept across the crowd, landing on the people who had mocked her earlier. She could see their smiles falter slightly, curiosity mixed with uncertainty. Maya held their attention effortlessly, feeling the power of the moment. She didn't rush, didn't stammer. Instead, she let a calm confidence settle over her like a shield. "I know this might surprise some of you," Maya began, her voice steady, "but I think it's important you know something about me." She paused, letting the suspense hang in the air. The room leaned in slightly, the chatter fading completely. "I've spent the last several years building my own company. It's called Collins Enterprises, and it's where many of you work or have worked." A quiet ripple ran through the crowd. Maya could see the sudden shift in expressions, shock, confusion, a hint of fear in some eyes. Ryan's smirk vanished, replaced by a pale, uncertain look. Claire's lips pressed together, her posture stiffening. Liam's confident grin faltered, and even Ethan's mouth dropped slightly, a mix of surprise and pride in his eyes. Maya let the moment stretch, letting the truth settle like a stone in the center of the room. She didn't raise her voice, didn't accuse or scold. She simply let her presence and her words speak for themselves. I built this company from scratch, she continued. I faced countless challenges, made mistakes, and worked harder than anyone could imagine. And yet, some of you thought it was acceptable to mock me tonight, here at my brother's engagement. Her tone was calm, almost gentle, but there was an unmistakable edge of authority. She had finally claimed her space in the room, not with anger, but with undeniable truth. Maya watched as the guests shifted uncomfortably, some avoiding her gaze, others staring in stunned silence. The balance of power in the room had shifted. For the first time that night, the people who had laughed at her were silent, uncertain, and exposed. Maya felt a quiet satisfaction, not from revenge, but from recognition. She had shown them her strength, her journey, and her accomplishments without needing to belittle anyone else. Her eyes softened as she looked at Ethan, who now wore a wide, proud smile, and Olivia, who seemed genuinely impressed and apologetic. For Maya, the night had turned from humiliation to empowerment. She had taken control of her narrative, claimed her space, and made everyone see her for who she truly was. And in that moment, standing tall on the small stage, she realized something profound. Sometimes, the most powerful way to silence doubt and mockery is simply to reveal the truth. The room fell completely silent as Maya's words sank in. For a moment, the only sound was the soft hum of the music, which now felt almost like a distant echo. Eyes that had once mocked her were now wide with shock. Mouths opened and closed, some stammering, some frozen in disbelief. Maya stood on the small stage, her posture calm and confident, letting the silence do the work she knew it would. Ryan's face had drained of color. He cleared his throat nervously, glancing at Claire for support, but she looked equally stunned. Liam's confident smirk had completely vanished. He fidgeted with his cufflinks as if suddenly aware that he was standing in front of someone far more powerful than he had imagined. The whispers and laughter that had followed her through the party were gone, replaced by uneasy silence. Maya's heart still pounded in her chest, but it wasn't fear, it was the thrill of finally being seen. She allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. I built Collins Enterprises from the ground up, she continued, her voice steady, each word deliberate. I faced failures, rejections, and countless sleepless nights. And now, I lead a company that many of you work for. The silence deepened. A few guests looked at each other, their embarrassment evident. Some lowered their heads, avoiding her gaze. A woman whispered to a friend, I can't believe it. She owns the company. The friend nodded slowly, eyes wide. Maya let the room absorb the truth. She didn't need to raise her voice or attack anyone. Her presence, her calm confidence, and the undeniable reality of her words spoke louder than anything else could. She wasn't angry, but she was firm. She wasn't seeking revenge, only acknowledgement. Ethan's expression softened as he stepped closer, a proud smile spreading across his face. Maya, he said quietly, almost in awe, I had no idea you'd gotten this far. I'm so proud of you. Maya's eyes softened at the compliment. Her brother's pride meant more than the reactions of anyone else in the room. Olivia approached as well, a small, apologetic smile on her face. Maya, I didn't realize. I'm sorry for underestimating you. Maya nodded politely, a flicker of warmth passing through her. She didn't need everyone to apologize, but it was enough to see that her hard work was finally acknowledged. Meanwhile, the people who had mocked her were struggling to recover their composure. Ryan muttered something under his breath, and Claire looked like she wanted to shrink into the floor. Liam cleared his throat awkwardly, as if trying to regain his former confidence, but it came across as forced. Maya watched them with quiet satisfaction, her pulse calm but steady. She had given them the truth, they could process it however they chose. The rest of the room, the guests who had not been part of the teasing, now looked at her with newfound respect. Some whispered among themselves, while others offered small smiles or nods of acknowledgement. Maya felt a sense of quiet victory, not because she had humiliated anyone, but because she had finally claimed her space. She took a slow breath and let her eyes sweep across the room one more time. "I'm sharing this tonight not to make anyone feel small," she said gently, her voice warm but strong. "I'm sharing it because it's important to be honest about who we are. We all deserve recognition for our hard work and achievements, and tonight, I hope you understand that about me." A soft murmur of approval ran through some of the guests, and Maya's confidence grew. The laughter and whispers that had haunted her since she arrived were replaced with something new, a recognition of her strength, her perseverance, and her accomplishments. She no longer felt small, invisible, or mocked. The party slowly resumed, but the atmosphere had changed. People approached her differently now, some offering genuine congratulations. Ethan pulled her aside briefly, squeezing her hand. "You handled that perfectly," he said. Maya smiled, feeling a warm glow of pride. She had turned what could have been an embarrassing night into a moment that solidified her presence, her achievements, and her respect. Even the guests who had laughed at her earlier seemed to tread carefully, aware that they had misjudged her. Maya didn't need them to grovel or apologize sincerely. The moment wasn't about punishment, it was about truth, empowerment, and finally being recognized for her hard work. As Maya stepped away from the small stage and joined her brother and Olivia, she felt a wave of relief and satisfaction wash over her. Tonight, she had not only defended herself, she had revealed the depth of her journey, and the room could no longer see her as the quiet, underestimated sister. For the first time all night, Maya Collins allowed herself to truly smile. She had faced the mockery, endured the whispers, and come out stronger. And in that moment, she realized something profound. The most powerful way to deal with doubt and underestimation is simply to reveal the truth and let it speak for itself. The engagement celebration continued, but for Maya, the night had already become unforgettable. Not because of the party, the decorations, or even the cake, but because she had claimed her voice, her presence, and her respect. And that, she knew, was worth more than anything else. The party slowly returned to its rhythm, but the air had changed. The laughter that once rang at Maya's expense had vanished, replaced by quiet murmurs of surprise and respect. Guests approached her differently now, their whispers carrying a mix of admiration and apology. Maya moved through the crowd with a calm confidence she had never felt before. She wasn't angry, she was proud, relieved, and stronger than ever. Ethan came up to her again, his eyes shining with pride. "Maya," he said softly, "you were incredible. I don't think anyone will ever underestimate you again." Maya smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. Her brother had always believed in her, even when others didn't, and now she could finally see the truth of her own worth reflected in his eyes. Olivia joined them, offering a sincere smile. "I'm so sorry for how some of us acted tonight," she said. "I truly didn't know. I had no idea." Maya nodded, appreciating the honesty. She didn't need grand apologies or dramatics, she only needed recognition, and Olivia's words carried exactly that. Across the room, Maya noticed the guests who had mocked her earlier trying to blend into polite conversation. Ryan avoided eye contact, Claire looked sheepish, and Liam fiddled nervously with his drink. Maya felt a quiet satisfaction, but it wasn't about revenge. It was about balance, about letting the truth speak louder than any words of mockery ever could. She had shown them her strength, her achievements, and her journey, and that was enough. Maya walked toward a quieter corner of the room, letting herself take in the moment fully. The warmth of the celebration, the soft glow of lights, and the faint music made her feel peaceful. She reflected on the roller coaster of emotions from the night, the embarrassment, the mockery, the anger, and finally, the calm triumph. She realized that her strength didn't come from anyone else's recognition, it came from herself, from the years of effort, persistence, and determination that had led her here. As she looked around, she noticed a few guests watching her with genuine curiosity. Some approached slowly, asking about her company and her journey. Maya smiled and shared small stories of her work, careful to remain humble but proud. She didn't need to prove herself. The truth was already evident in every word, every glance, and every accomplishment she had built. Ethan pulled her aside for a moment, leaning in close. "I'm so proud of you, Maya. Not just for tonight, but for everything you've done. You've built something amazing, and no one can take that away from you." Maya's eyes welled up slightly, and she squeezed his hand. His pride meant more than the applause or acknowledgement of anyone else. It was a reminder that her journey had always mattered, even if others failed to see it at first. Maya's thoughts drifted to the lessons she had learned. People will judge, underestimate, and mock, but their opinions do not define her. Her hard work, resilience, and integrity were what truly mattered. The satisfaction she felt wasn't about shaming anyone, it was about standing tall in her truth. She had faced the humiliation, endured the whispers, and emerged not just victorious, but wiser and more confident. The rest of the evening unfolded more smoothly. Conversations flowed around her without the sting of judgment, and even those who had doubted her seemed cautious but respectful. Maya laughed softly at a joke shared by a friendly guest, feeling light in a way she hadn't all night. She had reclaimed the night for herself, and it was a feeling of liberation that she would carry long after the party ended. Before leaving the small stage for good, Maya took one last look around the room. The celebration continued, but she no longer felt invisible. She had turned what could have been a night of shame into a defining moment of recognition and self-respect. And in her heart, she knew that nothing, no teasing, no doubt, no mockery, could ever make her feel small again. As she stepped outside for a breath of fresh air, the cool night embraced her. Maya smiled, thinking about the journey that had led her here, the years of hard work, the struggles she had faced alone, and the quiet victories she had achieved. This night had been more than an engagement party. It had been a testament to her resilience and the undeniable truth of her worth. For Maya Collins, the evening ended not just with a celebration of love and family, but with a personal triumph. She had faced judgment, ridicule, and doubt and emerged stronger, proud, and unshakable. And as she walked back into the party, ready to join the laughter and joy around her, she felt a quiet certainty. Her story, her efforts, and her truth would never again be underestimated.